Hey, how are you, everybody? Happy Thursday night, and welcome to run number 42 of the NJ Fire Guys podcast. Tonight we have a special guest, another special guest, Deputy Chief Robert Beattie of the North Plainfield Fire Department. Deputy Chief Robert Beattie, a distinguished 36-year veteran of the New Jersey Fire Service and the Administrative Deputy Chief of the North Plainfield Fire Department in Somerset County. Rob began his journey in the fire service at the age of 16 as a junior member in the Green Brook Volunteer Fire Company before joining North Plainfield's volunteer call force in 1991. Following in his father Brian's footsteps, he became a full-time firefighter in North Plainfield in 1999. He steadily rose through the ranks, serving as captain, supervisor of EMS, and training officer before being promoted to deputy chief in 2021. Rob is also an experienced fire inspector, fire instructor, currently teaching at Somerset and Hunterdon Counties. Beyond his fire department duties, Rob has made an indelible impact in the broader fire service community. A longtime leader in the PFANJ, Professional Firefighters Association in New Jersey, he has served in various roles, including vice president and local union president for North Plainfield. He is an IAFF Peer Support Team member and a passionate St. Baldrick Foundation volunteer, and a leader in preserving fire service history at the North Plainfield Exempt Firemen's Hall. Additionally, Rob contributes to the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation and serves as an IAFF instructor and field services representative, exemplifying a lifelong commitment to service, education, and firefighting advocacy. Without further interruption, Chief Robert Beattie. Hey, Chief, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, Nick. Thanks. How are you?
Good. I'm good. And yourself? I'm humbled to have you.
I appreciate the opportunity.
So let's get started with where did this little guy grow up?
So that's a great picture. I love that. That was Halloween one year. I grew up in North Plainfield. I grew up on Tremont Avenue, which is the west end of North Plainfield, which was the best end of North Plainfield. North Plainfield it still is a great place to grow up. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, really growing up in the 80s, it was just a fantastic community. I mean, like, rode our bikes everywhere, walked back and forth to school, lifelong friendships. I wouldn't trade it for the world. But yep, right there in North Plainfield. And that Halloween costume was probably my go-to for year after year after year.
Yeah, I had one of those fireman costumes myself that I wore out. All right, so you obviously, I read in your bio your dad was a fireman. Is that what brought you to it, or?
Yeah, for sure. My dad, Brian, retired a lieutenant from North Plainfield in the '89. So yeah, growing up with it, right there in town. I wouldn't say that, like, early on I knew that that's where I want to go. I want to follow in his footsteps. But as I got into my teenage years, and kind of paying attention to what he was doing, I wanted a little bit of a better understanding. I went to vocational high school, so it was a county-based school, and there was a friend of mine from another town that was involved in his fire company. He was a junior fireman, and it was close enough that I could join, not living in the same town, but I was close enough. And I was like, that sounds like a lot of fun. Let's see what Dad does for a living. I was at vocational school. I was studying commercial art. I was going to be pursuing a graphic arts career. And 16 years old, I was able to join over there. Met some fantastic firefighters. Up until then, the only firefighter I really knew was my dad and the guys he worked with. Great guys, but it's Dad. So it was great. Great experience, early access to training. There were some members of that volunteer fire company that were career guys elsewhere. And it was just like awe-inspiring just to hear their perspectives. And their willingness to spend time with us. I wasn't the only junior member. There was like 7 of us. Their time to spend time with us to teach us, not just the how-tos, but the whys,
Yeah.
really made an impact. And once I got to fire school and became a full member of the department, you're getting good feedback from my instructors and the senior members of the fire company. It kind of kept me moving, and and it was I can look back and it's all I ever really wanted to do. The art,
Yeah.
I was into it, I dug it, but I also learned in studying art that there are those who are talented artists, and there are artists who really, really work at it. I was an artist that really had to work at it, and and it was work, and going to the, hanging out at the firehouse and going to training and answering calls didn't feel like work. I felt like that artist that was just kind of good at it. And not to pat myself on the back or anything, but it seemed to come easy to me. Not that it was easy, but I seemed to grasp it. I was getting feedback, not just how I felt about it. I was getting feedback from others that I was doing well, and encouraged. I got a lot of encouragement and reinforcement. And it was a pursuit for sure.
That's great. I have a similar story myself, coming through life and family ties and joining a couple towns over because that was the only place I could join at 14. And actually now my nephew's going through it too. 14,
Fantastic.
Just joined Explorer Post. So yeah. All right. So now moving along, those now having that connection of being a few towns away, did you get to go on many calls with Greenbrook, being that you weren't living in town?
Yeah. So like when I say I grew up on the west end of North Plainfield, I mean, I grew up on 1 block away from the border of the east end of Greenbrook Township.
Okay.
When at 16, we were the last house on a dead end street. So at 16, it was out through my side yard, down a dirt trail to the main, a main intersection, no traffic light, and a straight shot, maybe a half a mile to the firehouse. And I rode my bicycle. I literally rode a bicycle to the firehouse, and I got under some of the guys' skin because they'd get stuck at the light at Greenbrook Road and Washington Avenue, and I navigated traffic. And I was 16. I could jump on the rig if I don't remember the numbers, but they had to have a crew of senior members, and I could round out the crew. But I beat them to the firehouse. I was sitting on the rig waiting for them when they got there. But it, great experience. You had to hustle because there were, like I said, there was 6 or 7 junior firefighters like myself that were doing the same thing, and it was, you get the spot on the rig and get out the door and get that experience. It wasn't about just getting there in time to check the sheet and get credit for the call. If you weren't making, it was a personal pride to make the rig, go to the scene. And whatever we were allowed to do was all we wanted to do. Throw speedy dry, stretch an extension cord, set up a light. We felt like we were contributing. And
exactly.
The culture of the department was, the culture of the department was such that it wasn't, hey, you're in our way. It was, hey, great to have you here. We need you. Keep doing what you're doing. And it kept you coming back. It kept you engaged. And, years later,
and it grows that passion.
Yeah. And years later, in my pursuits and my, my training, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but, I drank the leadership Kool-Aid, if you will, and sought that kind of education, like teaching, leadership skills, leadership techniques, pitfalls, things like that. And having that early experience and how I felt and how I was impacted by it, it clicked. And it was like, I know it works because it worked on me. And, I wouldn't, again, looking back, like, I have no regrets. It was a fantastic experience. When I do career days or career, discussions with students and things like that, hey, look for those opportunities. Look for, not within the fire service or anything else. You'll find something that you're passionate about. Surround yourself with people that are going to encourage you, teach you, and develop you, and be willing to give you an honest critique and truly develop you. And you're on the right track. If you're going to be around people that are just going to put you down and tell you you're in the way, it's not the job that's not right for you. It's where you're trying to get it done.
Exactly. But at the same point, you know it as well as I do, that initial, especially at a young age, that initial bad taste in your mouth, you don't want to, everything that you had built up in your mind about how great it would be to be a part of something like that just turned off.
Yeah.
And
that's where I give it to my dad. My dad, being a career fire officer in North Plainfield, my dad was very active in with the union, the PFANJ, the IAFF. He was a heavy hitter in that forum, right? He could have knocked it all down. He really could have, and he didn't. He was fantastic, supportive, encouraging. When I would go out on, as a junior fireman, we weren't allowed to go out on calls. I think we couldn't answer a call like after, I think it was like 9 o'clock at night on a school night, but on the weekends, it was kind of like, wait, whatever your parents are okay with you doing.
Okay.
And if I went out, on a late call and he was home, it was, hey, what'd you have? What'd you do? How'd it go? And it was that reinforcement. It was encouraging. So yeah, I mean, give it to my dad and my mom. My poor mother suffered being a fireman's wife for all those years, and I'm sure by the time I got involved, she saw the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I don't have to worry about this anymore. And there I go. And but never asked me to do something different. They were fantastic.
I gotta tell you, the same thing in my house. With me and my brother joined, and my mom never even blinked an eye. And it takes a special type of woman to see that in her husband for all those years, and then now my kids want to do it, and it takes a special type of woman,
for sure. And I have my wife Lynn, amazing. I was a volunteer when we got married, when I met her and we were dating, and with the aspirations in the pursuit of joining the career department, we got married, and it was still a little bit of a time before I got that appointment. And significant pay, I listened to Jimmy Oleski's podcast the other night. Same deal. It's like significant pay cut. I was doing really well at my full-time job. Things were good. We bought bought our house. We had more responsibilities, and she I won't say sat silently by, but we had some passionate discussions. But follow my dream, find a way, and we did. And again, she's long-suffering firefighter's wife. There she is. Yeah, Linny. That's Linny all the way on the left there. My daughter Larissa. And if you notice the uniform my son is wearing, at the time he was a volunteer in Greenbrook.
Okay.
Yep. So the only thing I had to save me for a lot of years was my brother-in-law, Lynn's brother, was a New York City policeman. Oh. So she spent a lot of energy worrying. Yeah. And I was cool with that. It took the heat off of me. No pun intended, right? But fantastic, distinguished career he had. And, you talk about who's influenced you and early and throughout life. And, there's just a stand-up guy that did his job with integrity, and honor, and had the respect of the men and women that worked with him to this day. He's been retired for a little while now, but just the role models I've been blessed to have in my life, whether it be in the fire service or my personal life. I talked about my parents, right? Lynn's dad, Lynn's mom just took me in as their own.
Was
And
that your parents or hers?
those are my parents. That's my dad, Brian, and my mom, Lois. That was the day I was sworn in as captain. I was promoted to captain.
Very nice.
Yeah. Good.
So,
just great people. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about my union work and both my dad's influence and Lynn's dad's, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But I've just been so lucky. We talk about the volunteer fire company. The volunteer fire. There's the fire department, there's the fire company. And when I joined Greenbrook as a junior member, the fire company hosted a bingo night. Every whatever Tuesday night it was. And as part of our responsibilities was we went and worked the bingo hall, delivering sodas, cleaning up after whatever. And there was a couple that were involved in the fire company, but not the fire department. And George and Alice Kadish, and they lived in Greenbrook. And George was a past mayor of the town, and liaison to the fire company. And his wife was involved with the ladies auxiliary, and they were just an ever-present couple at fire company events, and came to know them. They had daughters. The youngest daughter was a little bit older than me, but I just came to know them. So fast forward, Lenny and I are newlyweds, and we were looking for a house, and we were driving along, and I see an open house sign, and it's pointing to a neighborhood in Greenbrook. And I said, well, we can go look at this open house. I said, but George Kadish lives up there, and we can never afford to live there. We can't. We can't swing that. And it turned out we could. And that house was the house that I'm still in 27 years later. And George Kadish lived directly across the street from us. And just lifelong friends, lifelong neighbors, like I've known them all my life. And then a couple of years later, a North Plainfield police officer bought the house on the other side of him. So he and I became the two sons that George and Alice Kadish never had. Shoveling his driveway, cleaning his gutters, whatever it was. But they all goes back to that Greenbrook Fire Company connection, and those people that were welcomed the snot-nosed punk kid, into that world, and wouldn't trade it for the world. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can say whatever everybody's got experience, but the volunteer fire company as a whole, at least it's generally a family type environment, and if you have the right people involved, it's a great atmosphere and a great world to grow up in. Really,
you said it right. That was a mouthful of it's got to be the right people involved, right? The right people for the right reasons, doing it the right way, and that it makes or breaks.
Really, that's career and volunteer. Like we were talking before, it happens in the unions, where people get involved in different committees and stuff like that, and they let their personal wants come first over the greater good.
Yep.
All right. So,
absolutely.
Do you remember your first big call as a junior?
Yeah, I do. Well, as a junior, for sure. It was one of those weekends. I don't know remember if it was a weekend or if it was something like over the summer. There was no school the next day, right? So
okay,
one of those deals where we could go, and we did, and it was a house fire. It was on the west end of Greenbrook, and it turned out to be a fatal house fire. So right out of the gate, that was an experience of ours, and so it was 1988, 89 at that point, and a junior member relegated to lights and support, rolling hose, and I remember it wasn't a blazing, fully engulfed kind of fire. It was a room and contents fire, and it was a one-line job, and it was. I remember being on scene and not being made aware of what had happened. I just remember, I had really limited perspective to say, hey, why is this different than anything else? Like, that was just kind
Yeah.
of what it was. And, sign of the times, and what it was we went back and we were told what had happened, and we were told, hey, this can happen. And I really believe they did. They handled it the best way they knew how. And went home, and my dad's there, and hey, what'd you have? Because all they heard, all he would hear was the dispatch. They didn't have scanners, things like that. And I was like, yeah, it's like, it was a house fire. It seems, pretty straightforward. And one of the residents passed away, and he was speechless. And he says, all these years in experience I'd never had.
Yeah.
So you'd
Really?
fatal car wrecks and things like that, but never a fire related death on a job he was at.
Wow.
So that was a little bit of an eye opening thing, and to me, and he said the magic words, and I don't know how he knew, or if he had ever been taught or anything. Are you okay? Right? Are you all right? You okay? Yeah. I'm good. Thank you. And it didn't click then, but years later, certainly huge impact, right? Put it away. And certainly what we know now, things we've learned now. And looking back, there were guys in the fire company that, they didn't come around so much after that call, and they kind of drifted out of the picture a little bit, you connect the dots, a little later down the road. So for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So moving along, you came up through the junior. Now, was the junior concept in Greenbrook a newer concept, or had they had junior program for a while?
It was a newer concept. I wasn't the first of the first group that came through it, but I was probably like, let's call it like junior, 2.0. There was a group of people that started as juniors, and then there was like a little bit of a lull, I think. Then there was a couple that started, and then me and like three other people came in at the tail end of that. I remember being the youngest of them, if not in age, but in grades in school. So we may have all been 16, but like if I was you
were a sophomore,
if I was a sophomore, they were juniors in high school, right on. So that kind of deal. And then like one of those guys went on to a career department in New Jersey. One in the military, went to college, ROTC, military career, wound up in a career department in Virginia. I'm where I am. And then there's a couple of kids that came up behind us, and one of those guys is in Connecticut. I mean, it was a great organization that developed us. They just took us and they developed us. And the folks that were there with us that didn't go into the fire service went on to be very successful and just good people, and I think that's the dream, right? Is
again, it goes back to your neighbors across the street, good people that just teach, they didn't teach you how to be a man, but they taught you how to be human, if it makes sense. Like they taught you how to be a good person. And it's, especially in those early years of not young childhood, but adolescence, especially, where, I can go this way and I can go hang out with these kids behind the school on the weekends and do shit that I shouldn't be, or I can go and do something productive and be around people that are going to teach me right from wrong, obviously, is one thing, but right from wrong is something totally different, All right. So I'm guessing about 17 and a half, 18, you went through the academy.
Yeah. Went through Somerset Fire 1, which, back then you could start out as a 17-year-old because they weren't putting you in Ideal H back then. Mm-hmm. It was pretty strong. I think the closest we came was like they put us in like cold smoke in like a landscaping shed, like the 4-H fairgrounds, like this, to give us that kind of blacked out kind of, use your other senses kind of experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fire 1. And then when I turned 18, I was able to go to the Fire 2 program,
Okay.
which was, great, another great opportunity. Yeah, it's, and the fire, fire, they sent us out, they, they empowered us. And I think there was 3 or 4 of us from Greenbrook that were all in the same class, at the same time. So I wasn't there by myself, and there were, it was good. It was a great experience.
Okay. Nice. So then where'd you go, after high school? Where'd that go?
Yeah.
Did you follow the arts?
I did, for 2 years. I graduated from Somerset County Votech in 1990. And I went to what would be their secondary school, the Somerset County Technical Institute, 2 more years with commercial art. Okay. And while I was in finishing my senior year in high school, and then going into that post-secondary, I actually got a job in the field. I was working at a small print shop before computers and ink printers. It was a true offset, ink offset printers. But I didn't go to that. I wasn't in that shop because I didn't know how to operate the presses. But I got this job to do layout and design and setup. So the work I was doing was being made into plates that was being put on an offset press, and it was a small
early graphic design.
It was a small volume local print shop. So we would print, I would be doing like your layout for your wedding invitations, or I could be doing your business cards. And it was what I studied. It was what I was good at in school. It was in my field of study, but it was work. Before I got that job, when I got my driver's license, again, Greenbrook Fire Company deal, right? One of the firemen in Greenbrook was a mechanic at a local car dealership in Greenbrook. And, we were at a drill night or a meeting night or something. And he's like, "Hey, you have your driver's license yet?" And I'm like, "I do. I just got it, not that long ago." He goes, "Well," he says, "we need a lot boy." I go, "What's a lot boy?"
A what?
He goes, a lot boy. Lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He goes, "You move the cars around." He says, they sell a car, you pull it out of inventory. When they service it in the shop, you move it to the wash bay. When they wash it, you bring it up front so they can deliver it. He says you move service cars around. You just do odd jobs around around the shop. I said, "That sounds pretty cool. I like cars." I grew up, my dad was, he worked on street rods, old cars with modern drivetrains. Yeah, there you go.
You like cars? Like cars?
I love cars. I love cars. So I was like, that sounds like a great deal for me. So he gets me an interview with the service manager, and I go to the service manager, and he's like, "For sure, can you start Monday?" I said, it was like a Thursday. I said, "Yeah, I can absolutely start Monday. I'll come after school about 3 o'clock. He goes, "Good, you'll work till 9. That's great." He goes, "Great." Stood up. We talked a little bit about the money. I'd never negotiated. It was whatever he was going to give me was plenty for me.
All right.
Shook hands. He goes, he says, you can drive a stick, right? I'm like, "Yeah." So we left and went back to the firehouse. Hey, how'd it go? I said, "Great, I got the job." He goes, "Good." I said, "Can you teach me how to drive stick?" He goes, "Yeah."
I gotta learn by Monday.
So Saturday we went out on the brush truck, and I learned to drive stick. And come Monday I was driving brand new car, 17 years old, driving brand new cars and trucks, and it was great. And when the art thing didn't work out, I laid back on that my interest in working on cars with my dad and that lot boy experience. And I got a job delivering auto parts for another dealership. And then they had an opening as a service writer. So I was the guy, when you brought your car in for service, I was the guy that wrote the ticket up, wrote it up.
Okay.
I was the guy who called you up and said, "Hey, you need, brakes, rotors, and a clutch, and it's going to cost this much." Mm-hmm. And you tell me yes or no. And I did that for years till right before I got married. I got a job offer from an insurance company to, learn how to be an appraiser. So I was going out and I was doing, auto appraisals on wrecked cars all over
Okay.
North Jersey. And I did that right up until I got hired by the fire department.
All right. It's not
But
bad.
again, fire company connection.
Exactly.
I did drive it.
Actually,
I wasn't the first time driving a stick shift on the brush truck. My dad taught me to drive a stick shift on a Model A, 5-window model. All Model A coupes were 5 windows, right? And a Model A coupe that was bone stock, and so it was a little different driving the newer cars. But
yeah,
I had the
no
concept
doubt.
down, but I really needed a little bit of street experience doing it. So
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
great.
A little
It was
bit
great.
different.
What a great job. Working there. I'm 17 years old. I'm coming there after school. My buddies were either going out and working in their trades. And I mean, I had some guys in my class that were, really doing it, man. There were guys that were going out welding. The kid I competed with in school academically through Votech, his job after school was he went to a company in Bridgewater and he worked as a fabricator on a company that built water towers. I mean, how do you compete with that? In the summer, they manufacture they prefabbed components for water towers in this place in Bridgewater, and then they would truck them wherever they needed to go, and then they would get assembled on site. And 17 years old, and he's building infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
That's the kind of quality that Somerset County Votech turns out, and they were doing it then. And I was up there last year helping out there. They have a lawn public safety shop now. And I was up there last year, and the vocational program in Somerset County is top notch. They're turning kids out that are just aces. The quality, we had a mantra when I was there. It was quality, not quantity. It was about building that work ethic and doing quality work and not just turning out numbers or turning out production. It's still true. And, that instilled a work ethic in me, working at the car dealership with guys who had mortgages and kids and responsibilities.
Yeah.
And they were there, contributing and doing what they needed to do to meet their obligations. Had an impact on me. Again, just quality role models looking back, and served me well in the fire department, served me well as a parent, as a husband. It's those, started with, strong foundation at home, that, never undervalue that, but to go out into the world and see that, hey, my parents kind of knew what they were doing, right?
Yeah.
It was, and just have that reinforced and just over and over, and just having it over and over and over again. I didn't do any of this by myself. There was tons of people that contributed to what I'm doing and continue to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Most of the most successful people have a fortunate story like that, and you are definitely a successful role model at least in our career, in our career
Thank
field. All right. So how was getting on the job for you? What was your experience like getting there?
It was great. It was, it started in, right after high school in the early 90s, going out and
Is
taking
North Plainfield civil service, or are
It's
they
not.
a Title 40?
Title
They're Title 40.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep. So it started, there were no jobs. There were no fire service jobs or places, you hear about places laying off. But I took the civil service test, took North Plainfield's test when they ran it. After I, joined the call force there, Fairfax County, Virginia, traveled down there. My dad again stepped up, drove me down. We drove down the night before, stayed over, got up early, go take the test. Back then it was, no internet. no
Yeah,
maybe,
I was
right?
just thinking that.
Reading Firehouse magazine,
In the
and I'd
when they
always,
used to have the classified in the back.
all the way in the back. I would read that first, right? And Fairfax County they gave their entrance exam on a monthly basis. Whatever it was like the second Saturday of every month. You come, just show up. It's like, come take the written test, and we did. But I was out there. I was trying, and working and trying to go to school, and so joined North Plainfield as a callman in '91. Almost right away, they were giving an entrance exam, and when scoring was all done, there were points for time on the call force, and our agility test was scored by time, so you were ranked in time. I come up number three, and they hire two, and there's rumors that there's going to be a third, and that there's not, and politics being what they are, and this cycle repeated itself over and over again. Not just in North Plainfield, kind of Fairfax. It was again. I only had to take the written once, but went back twice for the agility test, twice for the medical, twice because of the span of time. And they just weren't hiring. So '99, I get the I get the phone call, and I come on the job. Now I've been a callman for 7.5 years, a member of the fire department, and just shocking how much I didn't know. Coming just making that transition. And what was more eye-opening was how much I thought I knew and didn't. So it was rough, at the beginning. And I'd love to tell you that I always took the high road, and I always persevered, but young, ambitious, cocky, whatever, my mouth would kind of get me there. But there were guys,
I know the feeling,
right? But there were guys there, some that had worked with my dad, and some that hadn't, and but knew me from being on the call force. Set me straight, and talked to me honestly, and gave it to me straight, and it was effective. Let's put it that way. And grateful for it, for having it, because I could have, they could have said nothing, done nothing, and let me sink my own ship, right? But grateful, for it, and but never looked back. Loved every aspect. Every day I went to work, it was a great experience, going on the calls, learning that, as a callman in North Plainfield, you don't operate apparatus. So learning how to drive, learning how to pump, learning the hydraulics.
I was going to ask that question. What is there? Because I know every town that has combination is a little bit different, how they operate and how they mingle their people. What's that dynamic? How was that?
Yeah. So back then it was a pretty even split. There were just as many call force members as there were guys on the career side. We, when an alarm came in, once you were cleared with green tag, an alarm came in, you went directly to the fire scene. You always had your gear with you. Went right to the fire scene, geared up, hoped that you were the first one to the lead engine to grab an SCBA, get an air pack. Got your assignment from the pump operator, because the officer on duty was, in what we call a fast attack mode now, or mobile command on those initial stages. So the pump operator is the one who gave you your first assignment, whether it's throw a ladder, tie a hydrant, stretch a second line, whatever. And so making sure that those guys, the guys that were working, especially the senior guys that were driving, knew who you were and knew what you could do was key, because they're not going to just give it to whoever walks up. They're going to make sure that we're so short, whoever is doing it has to be able to do it, right? So monthly drills, once a month you go to a drill, and the only other exposure you had back then was going on calls. and we were busy.
Okay.
There were plenty of calls to go to. So, that's what we did.
Now, what at the time, tell us a little bit about the town of North Plainfield and the size and the department back then and what it's like now. Where it's at.
Sure. So North Plainfield is 2.8 square miles. Its length is not as wide as it is long. So stretch of 22 dissects us.
Okay.
We have a small part of the community that's north of Route 22 that borders Watchung. The rest of the borough is it's bordered on the west by Greenbrook, bordered on the east by Plainfield, and on the south is the city of Plainfield. The Greenbrook is literally the Greenbrook, not Greenbrook, but the Greenbrook, is the city line, right? Roughly 22,000 residents ish in 2.8 square miles. Predominantly residential bedroom community. Industry, not a lot to talk about. There's a little bit, but retail, the retail hub on, the highways, the corridor. We have two, what I would call like main streets kind of districts, that being Somerset Street and Watchung Avenue. Back then, four platoons with an officer and 3 firefighters assigned to each. In 1990, I'm going to get the dates wrong, right? I want to say it was somewhere around 1995. We took on EMS on a Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. basis, and that was all handled with career staff. Their volunteers did not do anything with EMS.
Oh wow!
So and that kind of ignited the growth of the department. Because they took 3 guys off of suppression, they put them on the ambulance on a rotating basis. They worked their steady day schedule, and they were successful, and they were busy like immediately, and tremendous value to the community, just tremendous. And the Volunteer Rescue Squad, which is a very, very proud organization, continued to operate and did well. Just not on those hours. And and it's evolved to where we're running now with 6 on a platoon, on 6 on suppression, 2 full-time EMS personnel. A couple of them are 1 firefighter EMT, the others just straight EMT, on each of the 4 platoons. And then the ambulance is supplemented by per diem EMTs that only do EMS responsibilities, supplement our career staff on the ambulance. So during the day, we have 2 ambulances. When we're heavy, when we're fat, with 2 ambulances on the road with a full-time and a per diem on each of them. And if there's adequate staffing on suppression that the guys can cross the floor, we could put a 3rd on the road if we needed to.
Oh wow! Okay.
But so 3 and 3 or 4 and 2, depending on the platoon officers on suppression, and then the ambulances. And of course, if a firefighter EMT is assigned to that ambulance at first call basis, if it's a fire call, as a firefighter, he contributes to suppression efforts. The whole deal. It's so much better staffing wise than it was, but still way far short of what industry standard or NFPA, right? And we can talk about that too. And you talk about what the standards say and what's regulation, and then you talk about what your reality is, right? So our reality has always been, minimal staffing. So we train that way. We train with our reality, our operational reality. I think that's not a new concept, right? And I think it's the responsible way, at least from my perspective as the training officer at the time or platoon officer at the time. It's the responsible way. It's like if the worst case scenario is I got to do this with 4 of us, we're going to practice doing it with 4 of us. We're going to practice when we have 5 or 6, but everybody's going to be able to do it when we have 4.
Yeah.
And we're good. Listen, not to be, conceited or cocky, but we're really good at what we do. We're practiced, we're trained, and the fire goes the way the first line goes. Now,
Absolutely.
when the odds are stacked against us with delayed notification, whatever the circumstances are, we have them like everybody else does.
Yep.
I think everybody, strives to do the same thing, and I didn't develop that concept, Nick. I'd be lying to you. Like, everything is a little bit of a
I
hodgepodge of
hear you.
everything I've learned. I had grade officers, coming up that operated that way, taught it that way, demanded, that
you learn that way.
That we learn that way.
Now, have you ever had the instance or the situation where we always train, we usually work 3 or 4 guys, we do everything 3 or 4 guys, and then you got like 6 or 7 and you're like, oh man, this is going to be great. And then you actually have an incident with 6 or 7 guys and everything screwed up because I was expected to have to do this and this and this and this. And
no, it's like,
we were stumbling
I wouldn't
over
say
each other.
for sure. I can relate for sure. I wouldn't say screwed up, but as a player, as a piece of the puzzle, definitely like looking at the guy wanting to tell him what to do, and it's like, well, that's already getting done. So like, all right, so what's next? Like, what's next? And then you pull into like that part of your brain that's like, man, if someday if we ever had this, I could get this done too. And a quick recovery. It's never been me, when was my group that was working and we had that incident, it was never me that made the difference. It was us. It was the crew. It was the pump operator that knew what he was doing. It was the guy stretching the line that knew what he was doing. It was their willingness. Long before that alarm ever came in, it was their willingness to learn. It was their willingness to practice. It was their willingness to improve. And that's when it matters. It's my attitude was always, the first time we have to do it shouldn't be the first time we've ever done it. So let's practice it. Let's try it. And you do the fundamentals and the basics, and you plug it into the incidents, and you have your plan A, your B, your C. And we did well at fires. We did well. And when we didn't, we recovered well,
Exactly. It's all about the recovery. I was just going to say, it's training for those hardships and those diversities and those errors that keeps from falling into the quicksand, if you will, from, Keanu Reeves from The Replacements talks about quicksand, that one little error, whether it's, the cap on the hydrant is stripped or something. And the operator doesn't know how to overcome that, which draws him slower to throw water down, through the line, and that delays them inside. And it just it's training those diversities. Don't just go out into a parking lot and pull the 200-foot pre-connect with the smoothbore nozzle and flow water for 30 seconds and think you're going to be great at game time when one guy's at the grocery store. And
the best training drills the training drills that I contributed to and we would run as a platoon, the strongest messages that I had to drive home were things that I screwed up as a fireman, whether it be not doing a really good rig check at the start of my shift, being complacent, and then having that call and pulling the wrong gate or delaying water filling the line. I could, I could participate in knowing this coming into this conversation with you tonight, right? Is I am more inclined to recall with great detail every mistake, every screw up, every tactical error I made, not I was a part of. My part was wrong, because I don't want anybody to suffer the embarrassment I suffered, because it was mine. I owned it, It was
Exactly.
those were my, and they were plenty. They're plenty.
We've all made them.
And
I guarantee if you
know,
go through, yours are the same as mine, which are the same as this guy's, and the same as
for sure. But the underlying message too is telling that, telling the people that are listening to you that you're going to make your mistakes, just like I did, just like the people who came before me did. It's you got to own it. You got to own it, and you got to learn from it, and then you got to teach.
Don't just drop your head. And don't just drop your head when you're in that moment, because that chain reaction just screws the whole line up.
Yeah, don't push it off. It's there's a lot of things that led up to that mistake, right?
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it was your mistake. You own it. How did you recover? And what are you going to do about it? And again, it sounds easy saying it now in retrospect, but it was terribly painful at the time. And some soul searching and growth. Some growth comes from it. And I could talk to you about things that happened at fires. I can talk to you about things that happened at union meetings and at discussions. And fires are the easy part, Nick. That's what we signed up to go to. That's what we want to do. That's why we're there. Navigating the firehouse is tricky, right? So it's it could.
So let's get into
break you down.
What is that? What drove you to get involved with the union and start getting out there? Was firehouse, just wanted to make the difference in the firehouse, or?
I mean, it was there for sure, right? My dad was a union guy in the firehouse. He very involved at the state level. Okay. So when I joined, going to, it wasn't a hard sell from our local president at the time to get me to show up at the union meetings. To, almost immediately I inherited the responsibilities of the secretary because the person that was doing it actually was leaving to go to another department. So I inherited that. So secretary, taking minutes and things like that. And I was interested. I was interested in going to those and being involved in a roundabout way. I joined the bagpipe band, the pipe and drum band in the county. I was a snare drummer. Okay. And one of our members from the pipe band was graduating the State Police Academy. He was becoming a trooper. And his ceremony was at the War Memorial in Trenton. Right across the street from the War Memorial is the PFANJ office. So I was in Trenton and waiting outside the War Memorial for the thing. I wasn't there with the band. I was just there to support this guy. Yeah. And Tom Canzanella, who was the president of the PFANJ at the time, just happened to drive up the street and turned in the driveway. I recognized him. My dad knew him. So it was before he, it was like a stalker kind of thing, right? Before he walked into the office, I introduced myself. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, of course I know who your dad is. Why don't you come in and, you have a little time before your thing starts. And he just talked to me like a fireman. It was fireman to fireman. And I appreciated that. He took a lot of time asking a lot of questions about our job, about me, about what I wanted, what I was doing, how was I learning, and related some source to that. And I was like, yeah, I could see myself involved with this. And it was impactful. So, going back to the firehouse and wanting to step up, and I want to be, I'd like to be the delegate and go to the state meetings. I'd like to see more of what this guy has to say and what this guy is doing, and it evolved from there, and being the delegate, and being exposed to those state meetings at that time with the oh my God, the legends that were in the room, all I really had to do was listen, just sit there and listen. And, just giants, talking shop, talking issues, and you find out, pretty quick that sounds just like what we're dealing with. That sounds like an issue that
Mhm.
that sounds like something that could happen to us. And then you get the playbook. This is what we did. This is how we combated. This was their next move. And I enjoyed the challenge. I enjoyed the opportunity to listen and learn. And they were, again, talking about being in the environment and a good culture. They were welcoming, and they didn't care if you were one day delegate or if you'd been the delegate for 15 years or
Yeah.
your whole career. You're among like-minded people that are there for the same reasons, for same
Mhm.
core values, same needs, same wants, and
Different
went
patch
from
on the
there.
sleeve.
Yeah. So
Same circus, different clowns.
same circus, different clients. Right on. And so going to state meetings, going to convention, getting to know the people, the people and the personalities. And by the way, my local president at the time, Jeff Holtz, was also getting involved at the state level with the PFANJ. Befriended Tommy Canzanella. Dominic Marino at the
Mhm.
time was the treasurer. Joe McGuire was our labor vice president. George Borick was our legislative guy. I mean, these guys are just,
Legends.
they're just knocking it, just going, and they're just doing the work of the union. That's
Mhm.
what it was about. So, Jeff was getting more involved at the state level, and I'm riding his coattails. I'm accompanying him to these events. I'm going to convention with him. Um, his involvement is opening doors. I'm just meeting people. And the second district vice president opportunity came up. I was approached whether I'd be interested in taking that on, and I don't know how I was smart enough to say yes, but I was smart enough or dumb enough to say yes, and I was elected, and it was just such a privilege. The second district of the PFANJ, the most department wise, the most diverse district the state association has.
Now,
From
second district, District 2, is that like Middlesex, Somerset, like that Monmouth County?
Yeah, so
Okay.
City of Elizabeth, at the time Irvington, down to us, Monroe,
Okay.
to Asbury Park,
Mhm.
to Monmouth Ocean, Jackson, um, West Windsor at the time,
Plainsboro, yeah.
Plainsboro. Plainsboro was still at that time was still part of the Middlesex County deal with the fire academy and the hazmat unit.
Oh,
It
okay.
was kind of like
Yeah.
a one shop, and they broke out, separated out. One of the first challenges I had was to help facilitate that.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but it was a fantastic opportunity to get outside the box, right, and help. And I learned that big part of my responsibilities as a DVP was connecting people, just doing a little bit of
Yeah.
networking and connecting people to help, move things, change things, address things, resolve things. So really, I was learning at every step of the way, but you learn who your people are, who the subject matter experts are, or who has the experience, who's going to be our best shot to help resolve this. So not only did I have the resources of some incredibly talented people inside the second district, but I had access to the state association. You want some help with contracts and contract language and
Yeah.
moving a stalled negotiation. Dude, Bob Yackles in Edison, and that's a phone call, and a guy that's knowledgeable, and willing to help do the
Yeah.
work. Keith Kemery in South Jersey and Camden County, he can navigate fire commissioners and boards of fire commissioners and lawyers who represent fire commissioners.
Yeah.
These are people that have experience I don't. I'd be a fool to step in and try to do something I am not equipped to do. But learning all the way, and yeah, man, it was fantastic.
Resource management.
Resource
management. Whether you're a union boss or a boss in the management side of operations boss, it's all about resource management and logistics, knowing what you have, knowing what your resources are, knowing what your guys' strengths and weaknesses are,
knowing your people and knowing your audience. And and you said it, it's a let's call it a transferable skill, whether you're a local officer, a state DVP, a state officer, a fire company officer, career volunteer, it's leadership skills, right? Being smart enough to know that you're not the smartest guy in the room, right? Being brave enough
to admit it.
Being brave enough to empower somebody who's smarter than you to help you, but you got to empower them. Like you're not going to have them whisper in your ear, and you're going to step up. It's like, hey, you're better at this than I am. I need you to take the lead on this. I got your back, right? So you got to be smart enough to recognize it. You got to be brave enough to let it go, not let it go completely, but loosen the reins up to let somebody else run with it, right? You gotta share, or don't even think about taking the credit. You praise whoever helped you get there, right? But the part that takes courage, the most courage, is taking responsibility for it if it doesn't work. You got to own 100%. That. Like you put all the pieces in motion with the best of intentions, and if it doesn't go, ultimately it's yours. And
100%.
That's what you do. It's a transferable skill. And the union work, the company officer work, the administrative work, it's all there. And the work I did, the work I had the opportunity to contribute to, the work I was a part of as a union officer, prepared me to be a company officer. And the work I did in the firehouse as a delegate, as a local president, as a senior fireman, prepared me to be a company officer. And all those things prepared me to do. I couldn't have done any without the other, and still draw on that experience. It's when we talk to union officers or aspiring union officers, we remind them that you represent everybody. You represent everyone in the local, every position, not people, not individuals. You got to take the individual out of it. You represent the positions, all of the positions. So, in our reality, we have EMTs, we have firefighter EMTs, we have lieutenants, captains, deputy chiefs in the bargaining units. There's 2 bargaining units. We represent those positions. As union officers, you represent those positions. And it's so important it's so easy to kind of get pulled in to, that guy's unpopular. That guy, we don't like that guy. So, but that's a position. It's a position. And, it's same on the firehouse, on the apparatus floor. You're talking about the positions. You have a driver, you have an officer, you have a jump guy, right? And the best departments make sure that they have the best. One of our captains, Steve Dill, he'll say it all the time. Is that you got to put your best team on the field, put your best players in their strongest positions. That's true, and I stand by it. There he is. So I love that picture. That was a fire not that long ago. It was actually in Plainfield, and a buddy of ours, a Plainfield fireman who happened to be off duty that day, captured that. And I just love that picture. Steve's a good friend. But to my point, put your best team on the field, put your strongest players in their strongest positions. Absolutely. But you also have to take those strong people to develop the weaker ones. So
Exactly.
you got a strong
100%.
pump operator that sucks at stretching the first line. Hey, use him, and I don't mean like in a bad way, but use him to train the next pump operator.
Yeah.
But get your best jump guy to help him stretch lines and practice, and make them interchangeable. And you ultimately, you're always going to have strong people stronger at some and weaker at others. That's every organization. It's not unique to the fire department. Every organization has the same challenges, but if you use your strong people to develop the weaknesses of others, right? Eventually, you just have either strong or stronger people, and those weaknesses don't affect your operational abilities. And it's you're never done. Going back to working on the cars with my dad, they're never done. They're always tweaking, fixing, or repairing, right? Yep. And that's your crew, that's your company, right? You're never done. You're always building, building. And that's the dream. That's the best part. So take that skill and put it in the union environment. And you're talking about succession planning. You're talking about developing new leaders. Talking about using somebody whose strengths.
Always from the union standpoint, from labor standpoint, always be asking for something. Otherwise, you just lost your foothold, and they're gonna think think everything's great, and you got to start all over.
If you're not at the table, you're on the menu, right?
Exactly.
But you're talking to Jim Oleski the other night, and he talked about his stepping up in the PFANJ with his social media savvy and his branding and his marketing and his messaging, right? And that was just the epitome of that example. Is the organization was in need of those skills, and we didn't have to look for it. There's a guy already in our organization that's a subject matter expert. Why wouldn't you ask him to step up and let go of that, a little bit of that stronghold, man? Nobody can do any of this stuff by themselves. Nobody can.
No, you're 100% right. It's a team sport.
For sure.
Team sport.
For sure.
All right. So, what are some of the biggest challenges, some of the biggest learning curves, if you will, from your time in the union, as whether it's district VP or as or at the local level?
Yeah.
So later on in the Jersey questions, I ask, what's your advice for the fire service? I guess I'll ask right now, what's some of your advice for, upcoming union guys, or, guys that want to get involved in the union? Or.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, like the learning curve for me was, early on, was just learning the different makeups of the departments and how, what process you had to take, a union officer had to take to affect change. So coming from a non-civil service, municipal based fire department, the path was really clear. Is we have a contract. In that contract is a grievance procedure. If our rights are violated through the contract, the grievance procedure is there to be followed, and that's what we do. And we negotiate our contract and we bring things to the table, and that's the way it was done. And that historical knowledge was passed down to Jeff from his predecessor, and his predecessor got it from his predecessor. North Plainfield, the paid fire department, was established in 1904. I want to say they were organized in the late 1930s, and started, going down that road. I don't remember when they got their first contract. It was probably somewhere around the time collective bargaining came into effect in New Jersey in the 70s, maybe. But we had that historical knowledge, right? So for me to first understand how a fire district worked in that environment was a little bit of a crash course, right? And then a lot of the fire departments in the unions, the local unions that we were representing in the second district at that time, were brand new. So there was nobody handing down historical knowledge. So we're training union administrators and negotiations at a local level, and it's first contract, and it's what are we going to do? So you check out what resources you have and know your people. So my advice is understand that you don't know everything, and you're probably not going to ever know everything.
Yeah.
And be willing to ask for help and assistance. Don't wing it. The stakes are too high. So, get outside the box, ask a lot of questions. And as soon as you have an understanding of it, start, bring somebody smart and talented in to start learning alongside of you. Start developing the next generation of leadership. We have, you've been to enough meetings, whether it's, fire company, it's not union to union, right? You go to a fire company meeting and there's always one or two that are kind of on the peripheral, right? They're in the back corner of the room.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little bit hecklers. They don't come across like they're really engaged, but they're there they're like my cousin Vinny, right? All they're there to do is kind of poke holes in whatever, leadership is trying to get done, right?
Yep.
I love, those are my favorite members. Like, come on up. Like, let's get involved. I'll give you something to do. Something you can do to contribute to our success, not mine. It's not mine, ours. Just come on and get engaged. And I can point to a couple of, scenarios and situations where that worked, and it developed strong union leadership. And those strong union leaders, well, they promoted in their departments. They became strong fire officers, good, solid company officers. And who benefits? The department and the community they serve.
Yep.
Right.
100%.
All their members have strong leadership and people that are watching their back. They're capable, technically proficient. Their chiefs don't have to worry so much when those guys are, got the watch. They've earned the respect of the people that are counting on them for guidance and leadership. And you got a talented person that is developing the next generation of talented leadership. And that's just a solid recipe for operational success on all fronts. When I joined the pipe band, I unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, right? We got really involved with the funerals post 9/11, right? We spent a lot of time with a lot of members from a lot of different, various departments. And there was a fire officer from a larger city that was involved with the pipe band, and we had some downtime between services and travels and things like that. And I'll never forget. I'm a young fireman at the time, and I'll never forget. He said his best officers were guys that rode the ambulance and had some leadership responsibilities in the union. They were good situational awareness. They were conditioned to make educated, informed decisions, and on the EMS side, like on a moment's notice, right? Critical thinking skills, personalities, front facing, dealing with their communities. And it stuck with me. And it's like, so true. And being able to repeat that kind of advice or observation in this form, I hope our listeners that let that settle in. Like, I found myself, after hearing that, not so much seeking out opportunities to flex my leadership skills, but recognizing the opportunities when they were presented and being smart enough to accept the challenge. The leadership, like I said earlier, the leadership Kool-Aid, a mentor of mine, Ron Canterman, he was a fire chief at Merck in Rahway, Wilton, Connecticut, Mohegan Sun. He's back with where he started with the FDNY now. But
this isn't the first time his name's been brought up on the show.
Fantastic. And rightfully so. There's a guy that, came to North Plainfield when I was a callman. to give a class, one of the drill nights. He's lecturing to. He was a member of the call force for a while when he lived in town where I met him. But he's lecturing. He's giving us a class. He's giving the whole department class on leadership, and it kind of struck me as interesting that, wow, leadership is at all levels. It's not just a rank. It's not the formal leader. There's the informal leader that's just as, if not more effective, and take that away. And I'm a snot-nosed, smart-ass, cocky kid sitting in this class and probably taking the bait from somebody who just didn't care, and I'm reacting to it. And it's not a good look for me, and gratefully, like Ron Kahneman, was a guy that, saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, right? And took the time to pull me aside and have that mature conversation with me. And, it really still means a lot to me. He was my vehicle to the Fallen Firefighters Foundation and my invitation to Memorial Weekend. And, talk about humbling. You go there, we go down there, we work on the operations team, we work behind the scenes, just doing whatever odds and ends needs to be done to make that event happen for the families, and making sure the families never see what we put into make it happen. Just, it's got to be seamless, and it's got to be all about them. And we go there, and there's teams of people like myself from big departments, small departments, all ranks. And you go down there, and there's no rank. There's no rank in that room. There's no hierarchy of that. There's no job that's beneath us. No matter who you are, what you do back off campus for your job, for your department, like-minded people, motivated, same core beliefs and values. And man, that's the fire. That's what you want the firehouse to be, right? Yeah. And all these little aspects of my life, just kind of made me who I try to be every day, right? We all have our days, we all have our our missteps. But Nick, man, I'm telling you, I'm blessed, right? I have my amazing wife, Lynn. I have these two amazing kids, Larissa and Rob. And I'm watching now. Yeah, well, there they are, right? Just, that's why, right? You see, if you talk to Rob Paparo from New Brunswick, right? He talks about the why, right? There's the why. And seeing my son Rob in his pursuits now, he lives in Woodbridge now. He's in Colonia. He's on the District 12. He's a Colonia fireman. He's on the list. He's hoping to get picked up. But and seeing my wife, now, just like my mom did, I've got some time, thinking it's almost over. She got her brother out of the PD. I'm the next one. And now, Rob's right in, and she's
stepping.
She's so supportive, just like my mom was. And I'm just trying every day. I just try to be, to Rob what my dad was to me, right? Yeah. Encourage him, support him. I one of the observations that somebody had said to me once, there's two things that stuck with me with my son, and I'll take this opportunity to just pat myself on the back a little bit, because it's probably what I'm most proud of, right? I tell my kids every opportunity I get, especially if they're going out with their friends or whatever they're doing, it's just make good choices. Your life is going to present you, no matter what you do, life's going to present you with choices. And if you I would say, try to make good choices. If you're trying to make good choices, you're probably going to make a good choice. It doesn't always work out. But if it doesn't work out, no, I still love you. Whatever it is, we get through it. But just go out and just try to make good choices. And that's just been a thing I've always said to them for as long as I can remember. And I don't remember where it came from, but somebody overheard that conversation with my son Rob at one point, and it's like, hey man, that's really solid advice, right? And the other thing was at the firehouse one day, Rob was in the neighborhood and he stopped by, and he's a grown man. He's 20 at the time. He was 22 years old, and we're just kind of hanging on the apparatus floor for a minute. And one of the senior guys is sitting in house watch, and give him a hug and tell him I love him. And he walks out and he, goes about whatever it was he was doing for the rest of the day. And this guy, he says, that's really nice. You tell him that you love him. You give, I said, well, how else are they going to know? Now, how else do they know you love them if you don't tell them? You show them, you could show them through, how you interact, how you treat them, how you support them. But if you don't say it, like if you don't verbalize it, and the same is true with your crew and your people. You don't tell them how much you appreciate them. Your union members, they show the ones that show up for the meeting. You don't tell them how much you appreciate them taking the time out to show up for the meeting. They're going to stop coming around. And you stop telling the guys on your crew how much you appreciate the effort they're putting into training or how well they did at that mundane automatic fire alarm that you've been to for the 4th time in the shift. When you stop telling them how you really feel, right? Yeah. You're going to lose them. You're going to lose them. And I don't want to lose either of those 2 kids, man. They mean the world to me. So I'm going to tell them every chance I get. I'm going to show them every chance I get. And, that's the ball.
And also in this line of work, you may be going in a heartbeat. They might, we see it every day. This line of work, we see it frequently where they might be gone in a heartbeat. Yeah. And
that's reality, right?
While you have it.
Yeah, that's the reality. And, we've seen it play out. We've seen it, go that way. And it's so important, like right now, this, because of what we know, because of things that have happened, it's important to engage with our members. It's important to our young members, our older members, all of our members, and to understand where we are. We talk, they're teaching resiliency training in Fire 1 classes now. Like they're opening that door early in their careers to say it's okay to not be okay. It's not okay to not do anything about it. I don't want to lose another friend to suicide, not in the firehouse, not outside the firehouse. I've had that experience. It sucks. It's terrible. I don't think there's any of us. I honestly truly believe there's not a single person in the service that hasn't at some point contemplated that, right? Whether it's just a fleeting thought that runs through their mind or something that, they wrestle with and they work their way through it. Yeah. But you said it earlier, right? This is a team activity, and we're problem solvers. We go out and solve people's problems, no matter what their perceived problem or real problem is. When they call, we go, and we go as what? We go as a crew. We go as a team. We go as a 100%. Unit, a company, whatever your reality is, that's what we do. We go out. So why? Like why? What is it about our culture? Yeah, what is it about our culture that when we're confronted with a problem ourselves, what is it that makes us believe we can do it by ourselves? Nothing we do is by ourselves.
You go back to that first rough call you had with your dad. Something that he had never even experienced before himself. But he knew this isn't an okay situation. Like, this isn't a good thing for him to be experiencing, especially at such a young age. I go to my first time dealing with it, and, I didn't know how to deal with it. My father had been there, like your father had, and kind of, hey, it's okay. Like, it's not, and like, even for my father even kind of gave me that road of like, hey, it's okay if this isn't for you. Because I was at a young age. I was a junior when I first experienced it. And my father gave me that, like, he knew this is all I wanted to be in my life. This is the only thing I had ever planned for my life and my future. And he gave me that, like, hey, it's okay if this isn't for you.
You got that. Yep, like, you got that out. For sure.
It doesn't make it less. It doesn't make you less of a man. It doesn't make you less of a person. This isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I mean, from my standpoint, I remember at that point, I asked him, I'm like, well, how do I know if it's, you know, how do I know if it's not for me? And he's like, unfortunately, everybody's kind of got to find that out for themselves, you know, and everybody, you know, back then I'm going back to, 99, 2000, when I first joined as an explorer. And, you know, he's like, hey, that's kind of up to you to figure out how to deal with that. He's like, but it's okay if you can't.
Yeah.
You know, but
And it
now,
can,
no,
and Nick,
20 something years later, we know.
Yeah, it's so true. And, you know, we're getting there, right, in our careers. And,
Yeah.
you know, it could be, you know, tomorrow, it could be, you know what, this isn't for me anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want that to happen, but that's reality, right? And
Yep.
it's, you know, it's going to take some courage to confront that when it
100%.
happens. And it happens to all of us, right? And, you know, just knowing that, hey man, it's somebody else's turn. And we're invested in what we're doing. We're invested in this fire service of ours, especially the New Jersey Fire Service, which is unlike any other fire service anywhere, right? We're invested. We've put our time in. There you go, right? We've given, right? We've given our blood, our sweat, our tears, our energy. We've sacrificed, right? And that's when I say succession planning and see who's coming up behind you and set them up to carry it forward, right? That investment in time and energy is going to make that ultimate decision of ours a little bit easier to know that, hey, I left it better than I found it, and it's in good hands. Yeah. It's going to continue, right? With the way things are, and just in a broad spectrum, right? The way things are is things are disposable. Things aren't built to last forever. Things don't last forever. Things that, if you've ever had the experience, and I'm talking to you and I'm talking to the audience, right? Have you ever had the unfortunate experience of having to clean out the home of a loved one, right? And see their life in stuff, right? Their life in things, the things they've acquired and accumulated over a lifetime, the things that meant something to them, and they're gone. They've gone to a better place. What was it all about? Like, what did they, what happens to all of this stuff? So with that mindset and that thought process, you talk about preserving history and keeping it around for the next generation to observe and see and learn from. But we're fighting against a concept of everything old is old and whatever's new is better. And it's going to come down to some solid leadership to try to say, well, wait a second, the old things contributed to the new things. And you got to know where you came from before you know where you're going. And when I talked about my experience as a DVP early on, and those new upstart fire departments and those they're growing, and there's no historical knowledge. We got to pass that on. And now there's, here we are. I'll say it's a generation that's almost 20 years since some of those departments started, right? That knowledge, I'm confident that knowledge is being passed on. I'm sure of it. It's got to be. And that's what we're leaving behind. That's what you're doing with a program like this. Is you're creating the record. When we, in our station, we still have a house desk journal, and one firefighter every shift is assigned to the desk, assigned to the journal, and they write the comings and goings of the companies and the activities and the alarms going in red. And it's a mundane and it's a tough job. And like when I came on, the EMS crew was coming in at 6 a.m., but our bell didn't hit till 7 and shift change was at 8. So if you were if you were the book guy, you were up at 6 to make sure that the EMS crew showed up. And it wasn't a very pleasant assignment until you realized, or you were told, or you were informed or enlightened, you are literally writing the history of the fire department.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to go up in the closet and grab a ledger from 50 years ago, and you're going to read the history of the fire department on a daily basis. It's recorded day by day, hour for hour, since the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's important. And now you tell the probie, the new firefighter, I'm trusting you with this responsibility. Like generations of firefighters have come before you, and they took their responsibility seriously. Now it's your responsibility. I need you to take this seriously and do a good job. Do a good job. And
100%.
teach them and train them and give them, go back and read the old journal entries and see what's there. And, it's,
well, I got one for you.
Go ahead.
Take the book that has September 11th in it and drop it in front of them and go, look, this is your responsibility. This is your handwriting of history. In 25 years, 50 years, somebody's going to look at this book. You look at, I'm sure somebody's department out there still has the journal logs from, Pearl Harbor, December 7th, back in 1941. You look at that, you're writing the history, you're tracking the history of not only our department, but the events of the world.
Yeah.
Major events like that, catastrophic events, Oklahoma City bombing, I'm sure somebody made a note in some firehouse logbook. These things were going on.
Absolutely.
And like you said, you're recording history.
Yep. Yeah. If your department's had the unfortunate experience of a line of duty death, go back and read the station journal and see where that guy, is recorded at roll call, where, that firefighter may have been assigned to the journal that day. And somewhere it's got to be documented that, one guy didn't come back. One guy didn't come home. One firefighter, didn't make it. We can't not remember that, right? We can't not, pay some tribute to that. And how do we pay tribute to our fallen firefighters in the fire service? We train, we teach, we learn, we make sure that we talk about, Hackensack Ford. We make sure that we talk about the Worcester cold storage warehouse fire. We make sure that we talk about the Mattress Superstore fire. And, we make sure that these things aren't lost to at its old. We don't need that. Let's just deal with what's new, because those tragedies, they're going to happen again. History's going to repeat itself. You
100%.
got to know where you were before you know where you are or where you're going.
100%.
And that's one of the things I enjoy the most about what I'm doing now, is, with the fire code and being in fire prevention, and, the fire service, and I'm throwing myself in there, we've kind of looked down our nose at EMS, and we've kind of put fire prevention as, well, they're not really with us, right? Kind of like those that can do and those that can't, fire code, right? But it's, listen, it's an amazing document. The fire code, it's a living document. And
Absolutely.
the fortunate thing for us in New Jersey is we have a maintenance code, and everything that was required to be built in has to be maintained. And everything that has to be maintained was required to be built in because something really bad happened. So, so for our audience that wants to and does, and rightfully so, preach firefighter safety, like be aggressive, be firefighters, be safe, like do this ultra hazardous, dangerous job as safe as you possibly can, right? If you're gonna talk about everybody goes home, like we do with the Fallen Firefighters Foundation, and you're going to talk about trained like your life depends on it, because it does, and it does. You can't ignore the fire prevention code, which is all about firefighter safety, occupant safety, and property preservation.
Yep.
And that's the oath we took. It's not glamorous. It's certainly not as much fun as riding the rig. I miss that every day. I miss the shift work. I miss the camaraderie. But what motivates me is that aspect of, man, it's about us. This code is ours. And I'm not talking, I mean, everything in the code is important. Like, listen, preventing the fire is safer for firefighters, is it not? Isn't the fire that never happens the safest one for us to go to? Or what about the fire that does happen, but it's kept manageable because of a properly maintained suppression system, or early enough notification because the alarm system has been maintained and it's working as it's supposed to? It's not sexy. It's not glamorous. And, you're not going to get accommodation for, doing a good conscientious fire inspection. It's about fire safety. It's about firefighter safety. And
100%.
Man, I had that kind of in mind, and I kind of had that perspective and that attitude. And a few years ago, I got a part-time gig in Howell, Monmouth County, and I worked with Bob Lewis, was their bureau chief, and Brian Procknow was lieutenant,
great dudes,
and now he's
great
the
guys.
chief. Fantastic guys, but here are guys that made that's their focus, and such an effective bureau. The guys that Josh that works down there, CJ, Joe, everybody to the admin that's in the office. I miss them all terribly. I had such a great experience working there.
Great bunch of people.
Just fantastic people. But that community is so fortunate, and that the firefighters in Howell, the 5 districts that make up the Howell Township firefighting, fire service community, so lucky to have dedicated people that are just, that's what they do day in, day out. They take their jobs as serious as they should. They execute their jobs with, integrity and honor and discipline, and just an amazing asset. And just my small, very, very small contribution to the history of that office is something I'm just immensely proud of.
Absolutely. And it's you talk about the fire that never happens is the safest fire for firefighters, right? So the other day I did an investigation. It was a 2-story multi-dwelling, sprinkled building, which sprinklers put out fires before firemen get here. Well, here's the stairwell to the second floor. Here's the laundry room with no door to the public hallway. Here's the 4 bedrooms the 3 apartments that empty out to the stairwell. No exterior access, no secondary access out windows or anything like that, because there's only 2 floors. Well, it's a laundry in the laundry room. It's a dryer fire. Sprinkler head contains it to the one dryer, puts pretty much all but puts the fire out. Well, that's it. The firemen didn't get to do anything. But you know what? If that fire took off, that cut off those 3 apartments from being able to get out. 2 of the apartments had special needs children that would have never been able to get out of their home.
Yep. That's a win, right?
Yep.
That's a win. And you go back, and I'm sure part of your investigation is looking at those fire inspection records, or somebody's part of that investigation is, there was a fire inspector there, whether it's a guy that works, 12 hours a week on a part-time basis, or, a career engine company like in North Plainfield that's going out on a regular basis and saying to the property owner, we need these reports. We need to know that your system is there. And I have no problem saying, listen, it's not there by mistake. It's not there by accident. Somebody had to install that. It cost a lot of money to install what was required. You want a return on that investment, you have to maintain it. It has to work. It just has to.
100%.
We rely on it. It's ours. Go checking your your fire department connections, checking the risers, knowing the layouts. This is ours. This is our stuff. This is our equipment. If you walk past an FDC during an inspection without spinning the swivels,
I always
that's like that's like leaving the nozzle on the side of the road when you roll the hose at the end of a job, mopping up. It's just a vital piece of firefighting equipment. You can't do your job without it.
Yeah.
You hope you never have to use it. The property owner hopes you never have to use it. And when you do, it's got to work. It has
100%. 100%.
Yep.
All right, Chief. We've been going for an hour and 40 minutes.
Wow.
Let's get into the Jersey questions.
All right.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Number one.
Let's talk Jersey.
Number one, is it pork roll or Taylor ham?
I love it. I was waiting for this. All right. It's pork roll. It's absolutely. In fact, I think I saw on social media today, it's pork roll day. It's not Taylor ham day. It's pork roll day.
There you go.
Right. Taylor ham is a brand name. It's, Taylor ham brand pork roll. Delicious. Right. But let's a case pork roll, also delicious. I love that question because it is so New Jersey.
So Jersey.
Right. And being, some of the folks watching know me, know my personality, like, especially like when I'm chilling out. My wife calls it Taylor ham. She's adamant it's Taylor ham. So it's pork roll. And there's a very, very good chance that if
how is this?
It's a family. It's a family joke. My kids revel in it. They love it. They could be wherever they are.
I think that's irreconcilable differences right there.
Yeah, it could be. I'm just keeping that one in my pocket, right? But wherever my kids are, if they're someplace and it's on the menu, like they're taking a picture of it, they're sending it to us in the group chat, man, and it's great. But I can say with some confidence. that if my wife called it pork roll, I'd be all in on Taylor ham. All in. But it's so Jersey, right? I love that question. I love it.
Absolutely. All right, number two, who's got the best pizza?
Well, you're talking to a guy that's like gluten-free for like 10 years. So it's been a while since I've been down pizza. So are you talking?
All right, well, there you go. Whose pizza do you miss?
Whose pizza do I miss? I miss Demola's pizza, man. Demola's in North Plainfield.
All right. See, that's a good way to put it, right?
Yep.
Easy.
I miss it. Oh, I do it. I miss the convenience. I miss the convenience of a slice.
Right?
For sure.
I'll take a slice and a Coke.
It's hard to eat soup in the car.
All right. Do you go to the beach or you go down the shore?
Go down the shore.
All right. Beach of choice.
You go down the shore. LBI. Beach Haven. Beach Haven's got to be our number one, our go-to. Okay. Yeah, for sure. It's LBI. We don't always we don't always make it down there, make it all the way down there. Point Pleasant Beach is a good, good, safe, travel doable distance. We want to just go for a couple hours, go for the night. My wife has family in Spring Lake and Avon. So those were always go-tos for us. But yeah, if we're going to pick a destination, it's LBI.
Okay, excellent. Does Central Jersey really exist?
Second District, baby. Central Jersey absolutely exists. It's a real thing. Now I remember vividly, right? 201 and 609, and that was it. 201 was North Jersey. 609 South Jersey. And I remember when they brought 908 into our reality before 732, right? 908 was Central Jersey. Yeah. So it's a real thing. It exists.
So now where do you draw your northern and southern borders?
Okay. Well, the Driscoll Bridge is the southern border, but not really, right? So in reality, I think it's the Monmouth rest stop on the Parkway. That's the threshold between Central Jersey and South Jersey.
Okay.
And north is a little trickier, I think. So I'm probably going to say like where the Parkway and Route 78 cross each other. is probably my
Okay.
entrance into North Jersey.
All right. I
Yeah,
got you.
yeah, for sure.
I
You know,
got
when I'm talking to people like from outside of New Jersey, from
you.
out of state, and they're like, "Well, where are you from?" My answer is always like, "Well, if you believe it exists, I'm from Central Jersey." And they're like, "Well, what's that mean?" I was like, "Okay, well, if you look at New Jersey, it's like fat at the bottom, skinny in the middle, and fat at the top. Like we're just above the skinny part before it starts getting fat again." And then when they're totally confused and don't know what I'm talking about, I just tell them, I'm like, "Look, I'm 40 miles due west of New York City," and they're like, "Oh, okay,
Okay.
oh, okay,
Gotcha.
yeah, yeah, yeah." But it's
I'm,
totally a thing for sure.
I'm right between Pennsylvania and New York.
Yeah, yep. I can go to Philly. I can go to New York. I can go to
Yeah.
Connecticut. I mean, we're so spoiled,
Yep.
right? Just
That's why Central
yeah, just
Jersey is the
love
greatest
it.
place in the world.
Absolutely.
All right. Now here's the serious questions.
Okay.
Who are or were some of your biggest mentors?
Oh, so I've mentioned a number of them, right? So Ron Canterman, right, in the realm of leadership and what it means and how to hone those skills, that skill set. Like Ron's been the biggest influence, you know, for me in that aspect, and so selflessly, he's given his time, his advice, his counsel. Um, Really, I'm privileged to to count him as a friend, but also his willingness to point me in other directions to other sources for that information, right? Um, Tommy Canzanella made a huge impact on me. Don Marino, um, my whole time, well, almost my entire time, my own 3 terms that I served were under Donnie's leadership. I miss him terribly. I miss arguing with him. I miss disagreeing with him. I miss the fire and passion that he had for whatever he was doing. It was infectious. It motivated you. It made you go. Jeff, Jeff. I mentioned Jeff Holtz as a local leader in my formative years in the firehouse. And the doors he opened for me. I could never repay him. Man, I'm gonna miss people just because there's so many of them. Everyone I can think of in the fire service in one way, shape, or form has influenced me. Our fire chief, Bill Eaton. Bill Eaton, just a fantastic person, right? Boss, leader. You talk about a guy that can truly separate, personal and professional, and execute either one with integrity. And I'm sure like some of our guys that are going to tune in and watch this, they think I'm like, sucking up or to the chief or, kissing up, but,
Trying to get out of prevention.
I've been privileged. Like when I talk about, my time as a junior firefighter in Greenbrook, right? And as soon as I was old enough to attend Fire 2 class as a volunteer in Greenbrook, Bill Eaton was in that Fire 2 class. I've known him almost my entire fire service career. He got hired, in I think 91. Before I was a member of the call force, he was already on the career department. And then when I got hired, I was on the shift. I was on his shift. I won't say we were on shift together. I got assigned to his shift.
Okay.
When he got promoted to lieutenant, the company officer, when he got promoted to chief, just not the, and I don't mean this in a bad way, not the easiest person to work for, but in the best way possible. High standards, not like pounded fist demanding, but if he's pointing us and as an organization in a direction, he expects us to go in that direction.
Yeah.
And in a very mild, even keeled, unemotional style gets us there. Responsible for where we are today, for sure. Boy, I could. I talked about George Kadish. That I have amazing parents. Like, of course, my parents are, lifelong mentors for me. We lost my mom a few years ago, but for certain, still an impact, everything, the example she set for us and set us in the right direction. I see a lot of her. I have my sister, her stubbornness and her drive and focus. Definitely, I see my mom there. My dad still a valuable counsel. An easy phone call to get some advice for sure. But George, just a solid guy and good person, giving, warm-hearted. Yeah, I mean, I know I'm missing some people, but just people, people who've had an impact on me. My greatest hope is that in some way I've impacted them. And as I'm moving through this life, that those examples are being further communicated down the line. And I've drawn inspiration from everybody I've met in the fire department, everybody I've met in the fire service, at all levels. You teach at the Hunterdon Fire Academy. The Fire One students, man, they just fire you up. They motivate you. They're asking questions that you haven't thought about the answer for in decades, and challenging you to give it to them right. And my kids, my daughter, just an amazing kid and a great person, amazing human being. And my son, while he's pursuing his dream of getting on the fire department and he's active as a volunteer fireman, he went out like right out of high school and started his own business. He started a business, cutting grass and doing landscaping, and he's grown it, to where he's got a couple guys that help him out. He's got a couple trucks. He's got a couple piece of equipment. There is no way, Nick, anywhere in my history and my background, there's no way that I ever had the courage to step out on my own and make my own way in business or earn a living the way he has. And he inspires me. I don't know where he got it from, but he inspires me. And I'm watching the clock too, and I know I'm running long. But
we're good. We're good.
In the category of mentor, and I said earlier that I was going to mention this, again. My wife's dad, Dan Hussey. So my dad, growing up with my dad, union guy, right? I was in the background and overheard things like grievance and contract and negotiations and job actions when there couldn't be job actions and how bad those things were. I meet Lynn, and I meet her father, and her father is an arbitrator. And the conversations and the talks and the honesty and the guidance, never crossing an ethical line with him. Like, he never would talk about anything he was involved with or directly involved with, or anybody even knew was involved with. But just the philosophy and the approach to whatever an issue could be was just so enlightening and valuable, and I loved every minute of it. And we lost Dan. He was two times he received an organ donation to survive, to live, and we were blessed with so many extra years because of the generosity of two families, right, to give us that gift. And his battle through those things, and his courage, his attitude to continue to be who he was to us, to our kids, to his kids, Dan and Lenny, to emulate, if I could emulate in some way my father and Lynn's dad, and I think I'd be okay. I think I could fall short everywhere else, but if I could just be a little bit like those two guys, amazing. And everybody that's ever been, I'll say everybody that's ever been kind to me, like I remember them, but to everybody that's ever kind of given me some shit, and if I can say that on the podcast, like everybody's given me some attitude. Everybody who's ever, given me pushback, anybody who's never, didn't agree with me, I'm grateful for that, because that's just an honest reaction to whatever I was saying, whatever I was doing, whether I was right or wrong. Getting that back is just pure honesty.
Yeah.
And all it was to me was a challenge to be better. If I'm not getting it, if I'm not I won't say convincing, if I'm not communicating with you for you to understand where I'm coming from, that's a me problem. I'm never going to change the way you process or take information. So I got to find another way to articulate make my argument, to make my point, to stand up and say it, or we just be grown-ups about it and agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Because somewhere we agree on something. There's common ground. There's something, whether it's, hey, you're breathing air, I'm breathing air, we're breathing air. Let's just call it a day, right?
Yeah.
But I value people in whatever organization or group I'm functioning in, whether it's the fire company, and when I say company, I mean that engine, that ladder, that unit on the fire ground, in the union hall, at the state meeting, any venue. I welcome that disagreement. You got to be respectful, and you got to respect the process. There is a way to do it the right way. And so influence, impact, motivation. Yeah, it's all there. Yep.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I'm sure to everybody that's listening, that's taking the time to listen, if I've missed your name, I could go on and on. Like there's a guy in Fall River, Massachusetts, Nick. His name is Jason Burns. He's a local president. And I met him through the work I do with the international, with the education cadre, right?
Okay.
And Jay Burns gets elected as president of his local in Fall River, Massachusetts, and he sees that he's lost a couple of members to occupational cancer. He looks back into history, and there's more than should happen in any department, much less Fall River, Massachusetts. And he's motivated, and he starts digging in, and he starts looking, and he starts asking questions, and he starts challenging the norm. And he gets teamed up with this Last Call Foundation out of Boston, and that gives him a platform to advance ask his questions, get some answers. And he's at the forefront of a movement that's going to save firefighters' lives into the future, and that's getting PFAS out of our turnouts. There's a guy that's just as approachable as you are, as I am, and doing it for those right reasons, man. You can't not talk to this guy without being inspired in some way, and it's, there's everybody I've met has impacted me in a way. I couldn't even begin to name them all, but they're all valuable to me. They're all important to me. And I wouldn't change a thing.
Absolutely. Outstanding. Next question.
Yep.
What are greatest accomplishment or achievement?
Becoming a dad. On the job.
Well,
becoming a dad.
In general.
Being promoted to the position of dad was maybe the greatest honor in my lifetime. I imagine that there's something down the line for me to match it, maybe. Who knows?
Grandpa.
But yeah, maybe.
My dad tells me and my siblings all the time I should have skipped you guys and gone straight to them.
Yeah, but no,
Dad, I don't know if you know how this works, but without us, they don't exist.
Well, how it works is like I said, I truly believe it's one of my greatest accomplishments. But if you know how the things work, I didn't do it by myself, right? I have an amazing partner with Winnie, right? But greatest accomplishment on the job, man. I think it's just always finding myself in a position to affect positive change. That's what I once I grew up a little bit, settled down a little bit, listened to some solid advice and guidance from people who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? My goal has always been to be in a position to affect positive change, whether it's as an officer in the organization, a union officer, or a fire instructor or an inspector. Using my history, my knowledge, my desire to learn, to affect positive change, and having some success. That's what I feel most accomplished in, for sure.
I can see that. Excellent. Another excellent answer. Very articulated. I like it.
Thanks.
Last question, and I'll let you get on with your life.
Okay.
What advice do you have for the fire service?
Respect the process and never stop learning, right? Know where we came from, why we're here, and where we need to go going forward. And just because we lived it and we did it doesn't mean it has to be that way. But we can't ignore or reinvent, how we got here, or what made us us. And there's so much opportunity right here in New Jersey to chart that course, right some wrongs for the future, for the next generation, coming up behind us. And it's doable. It's within our grasp, and it's going to take some soul searching. It's going to take some gut wrenching compromise to get us where we need to go. But it can happen. It can happen. We need to. The advice for the fire service today is look behind us right now at the guys and gals that are coming in, the guys and girls that are coming in, the firefighters that are joining this fire service. Mm-hmm. Recognize everybody's bringing something to the table, right? You talk, I hear it. We hear it all the time about, the kids today, and they're this and they're that. If we don't meet them where they are,
yep,
we're going to lose them forever, right? So gut wrenching concession, got to let our guard down a little bit, meet them where they are, to bring them up, right? Go back to what I was talking about take your strengths and develop other people's weaknesses in there, and that's it. That's it. It's going to take.
You know what? We've talked about this with some people on the on the show before, and you know what? If you go back 50 years, I guarantee those guys 50 years ago were saying that about the guys, that are now retiring off the job. These kids just don't get it. These kids just aren't the same. They're changing the job.
Absolutely.
But they made their concessions. They made their changes within and learned how to work. And like you're saying now, you gotta just adapt to the change.
It's there. The talent is there. There's a program like this, right? Where, listen, the new kids, the new people coming into the fire service may not sit down and watch this, but a senior guy in the firehouse who this message may resonate with has the opportunity to show it to them, introduce them to it, right? It's, respecting the process and understanding where you came from. It's true in the fire service. It's true in everything and everywhere you go. It's doable. It's doable. It's going to take leadership. It's going to take some succession planning, and the right thing to do is never the easy thing to do. It's not going to be easy. It's not. And
if it was easy, everybody would
do it. And if I can find myself in a position to affect positive change, and I think that's what an opportunity like sitting here and talking to you is. It's an opportunity to contribute to positive change. And the more often I find that opportunity, the more often I'm going to take advantage of it. And not everything I'm telling or I'm saying is actually, nothing I'm saying is an original thought or original concept. They're just pieces of things that I've seen and I've observed and I've tried, and they've worked. And there's the things that I've done and I've seen and I've tried that didn't work. And I'm more than happy to share those things too. and maybe it works for somebody else, maybe it won't. But if you don't roll your sleeves up, if you don't get your hands dirty, you'll never know. You're never going to know. You're never ever going to know.
Right.
Yeah.
You're 100% right.
But yeah, the talent's out there, Nick. Man, they're there. We have to meet them where they are, and we have to develop their weaknesses and empower them. Let them make some mistakes. Let it happen, because you're not going to learn otherwise.
100%.
And man, I love this opportunity. I love programs like yours. They're and to be asked to participate is it's an absolute privilege.
Well, really, it's a privilege having you on. I mean, I know you're a busy guy. So many things going on in everybody's life, especially this time of year. It really, I appreciate you taking the time to come on and share your message and your career with, like you said, future generations.
Yep. Thanks, man. Feelings mutual.
Absolutely. Do you have any shout outs? Anybody you want to say hello or?
Yeah. So I'd like to, the folks that have tuned in, anybody that's taken the time to sit down and listen to this, thank you so much. I encourage you to hit the subscribe button. I'm sure that's a thing, right, Nick?
Yeah.
Like,
comment,
go back,
share, and subscribe.
If you've never looked before, if you haven't looked before, go back and give a listen. There's some really great insight out there. There's some talented people. They're not that far away. Jersey, Jersey is Jersey, and it's the struggle, right? We have that in common, and without it, it wouldn't feel so good. But shout outs, just every single past, present, and future North Plainfield firefighter, North Plainfield Fire Department EMT, EMS provider. I love all of you. I go to work every day for you. And it's an absolute privilege. I know that there's probably a bet going around the firehouse as to when my last day may be, which is, I did the same thing when guys hit that magic number, but I have no plans right now, man. I love going and being in a position to make, positive change. And to those that came before me, I'm doing the very best I can every day to do the job with honor and distinction the way you did, before me. And man, it's just my hope and dream that those coming up behind us are going to, keep paying it forward, keep making it better, keep growing. And man, I don't want to go to a funeral. I don't want to go to your funeral until it's the right, it's the right time. But it's been an absolute privilege just to be here. All my IAFF brothers and sisters, 350,000 of you, across North America, whether you're listening or not, the work you're doing at the local level, the local affiliate level, is the work of the union. You're making every one of us better by doing your jobs with, honor and integrity, and we're all learning from each and every single one of you. But yeah, man, I love this job, Nick. I love this profession. I think of it as a skill, as a trade, and so happy that I've had the privilege of doing this job and just meeting the people I've met and working with the folks I have, and knowing that tomorrow morning I'm going to get up, I'm going to put that uniform on again, and I'm going to go down there and I'm going to just I'm just going to empty the tank and leave 100% on the table, and regroup and do it again and again every chance I get.
I love it. I love it, Chief. All right, stick around. I'm going to put you in the backstage area, say goodnight to everybody, and then we'll say goodbye on in the back.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. That wraps up another phenomenal run, number 42, with Deputy Chief Robert Beattie of the North Plainfield Fire Department. Everybody like, comment, share, and subscribe if you're liking the show. If you don't come out next week, have a good holiday, everybody.